Welcome to the Mindcraft Podcast. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I have with me here today the wonderful Lisa Gregory, who is a business owner and the author of Stuck No More. Stuck No More, which I believe is just barely released. Yes?
That's right.
And so Lisa is going to talk to us about what she does in one of her businesses, which is getting people unstuck from corporate situations they're no longer happy with, personal life things that they're no longer happy with, and also relationships when they're feeling so stuck that they're not sure how to go forward. Lisa's going to talk to us about how she works her magic. So, welcome, Lisa. We're so happy to have you here on the Minecraft podcast.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm excited to be here. And I love the work that you do. I love mindfulness. And there are a lot of things where you and I have talked before where we connect and we help people in similar ways. So I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes. So Lisa and I first met, and the listeners hear that a lot because I've had a lot of masterminds on lately. We met in our mastermind group, which is just loaded with incredible people, very smart, who are doing good things and pouring value into the world. And so I'd like Lisa maybe to share with us sort of maybe sort of what prompted you to do this, Lisa, and then maybe we can go from there on how you go about doing it.
Sure. So my co-author, Dr. Steve Jeffs, and I have worked together for about 10 years. We work mostly in the corporate space, helping leaders and corporate teams reduce the toxicity in the workplace to help people bring their brilliance to work in an energizing, positive way, to make a contribution, to reduce the fear and the draining things that often happen in cultures in large organizations. We've been doing that for a long time. And a couple of years ago, we decided we really wanted to take the tools that we teach leaders and others and share them with a broader audience. So we wrote Stuck No More, Practical Self-Coaching for Everyday Problems. And we included our four most helpful tools and put them in a format where you can learn to coach yourself. So if you aren't around Steve or Kimberly or I, how do you get unstuck from the situations you procrastinate and you feel frustrated in, or the relationships you're just like, I don't know how to make this better. It seems like we have miscommunication every time I open my mouth. These four tools will get you unstuck from about 80% of the things that cause the frustration and toxicity in your life.
Excellent. I absolutely love this. Okay, so it sounds like the corporate world was kind of your sort of mojo motivator, right? And then Lisa and I were talking just a little bit ago about also helping people get unstuck in their personal lives and in their relationships as well. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you do that.
Sure. So one of the tools that we share in Stuck No More is one around changing your internal story. And Kimberly, what I love about the work that you do is you help people get really mindful and quiet and clear so they can hear themselves. And one of the things I help them do is once they get quiet and clear is to ask them or they ask themselves some very clear questions around what am I telling myself? What's my internal story? So much of the toxicity that we have and the anger and the frustration or the stuckness is tied to the story that we're telling ourselves in our head. So what am I saying about the situation that's adding to the frustration? Who am I blaming? What part of that is true? What's the end of this story? If I keep playing out this story in my mind, where is it going to lead me? What's a different potential ending? And what's one step I could take toward a better ending?
Oh, I love that. I love that. So throughout the book, it's step one, step two. Okay, so the first step, bring me back to the first step.
Yeah, so this is one of the tools. So one of the first question in the tools is really about focus, which Kimberly, you're so good at helping people shift and change their focus. And so that first question is, what am I focusing on? What is the internal dialogue that's happening in my head? Who am I blaming? What am I talking about? What's the mantra that I'm creating? So for example, in a frustrating relationship with a coworker or a sibling or a boss, or just with yourself, what's the reoccurring mantra, the words that just keep playing in our head so much so that we really believe that they are true and they're the only truth. And that's where we get stuck.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. And that's bringing back, you're right, Lisa, about all of it. It's bringing me back to something I say frequently, which isn't mine originally. I don't know if it was Tony Robbins or who it was, but where the focus goes, the energy flows. And I think when people are on autopilot, which is the biggest thief of life minutes there could possibly be, we're just allowing, the words allow, right? We're just allowing, and the brain loves patterns. So the more we allow, even if the story is not even, real 100%, right? We're just building, 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 and it's like a wet snowball in March rolling downhill. So that brings us to step 2. So bring me back to step 2 again.
So step 2 is around the habit. So what am I focusing on? And then what's the habit that I've created, right? The mantra around that story. And like you said, the habit, the entrenchment, that's where we really get stuck. Then we talk about, well, what's the motivation? What's it costing me to stay in this story? What's it costing me in terms of energy and time and focus and lack of creativity? And then we check the beliefs. So what's another perspective you could consider? And when you do that from a place of stuckness, and we all get stuck. I get stuck, like we all get stuck. But when we say, what's another potential belief or perspective I could hold? The brain goes, yeah, but it's not true. And that's okay. We're going to play pretend for just a minute to get out of the stuckness that's in our head that we've entrenched ourselves in and just say, what is another possible story I could tell myself? What's another possible motivation I could ascribe to that person rather than they're out to get me and they hate me or they're a jerk or they're an idiot. So what's another perspective you could consider? Then the final is really taking a wider view of the story and saying, all right, with this different perspective, even if I don't believe it's true, how do I feel if it could be true? What do I think about that possibility? And if it was true, what would I do differently as a result? And what it does, Kimberly, is, as you know from your meditation and your mindfulness work, it gets us out of the rut and the stuck. And then we start to be more creative about potential solutions to our problems.
Oh, 100%. And 100%. And I wanted, after the focus, kind of just go back to the habit part, because I don't think, people necessarily are aware. People know, but maybe they're not aware up front always, how powerful, how habitual we are as creatures. And I'm thinking of Charles Duhigg's. I don't know if you've ever read I think it's called The Power of Habit, actually. Anyway, it takes about 21 days for an average habit to shift and stick, right? So when people have been locked into whatever their scenario, saga, story has been going on for a long time, if that's been a really long time, it's going to be a little heavier lift to climb out of it. But know that going in, right? Because the subconscious is so involved in that. And then what did you say after that? Because the habit thing is huge. I don't think people realize that to shift out of that does take commitment and courage and effort.
It does.
It
It also
be gone in a night. That's not how it works.
No. And it also requires, Kimberly, looking at the meaning that we're assigning to the situations in our life. And I said that to a friend recently, and she's like, what do you mean, Lisa, by the meaning we assign? It's the interpretation of the story.
Yes.
For example, there's a story that I tell in the book of my husband saying something to me, and I thought, oh my goodness, if he thinks that's true, I don't know how we can even be together, because I am not the kind of woman who would be with the kind of man who believed that thing, right? Ends up, little spoiler alert, that totally was not what he meant at all. Luckily, I checked myself and checked myself in the meaning, but I really quickly spun up into this story. And so if X is true, then Y must also be true. So this means that X, Y, Z. If someone is rude to me or speaks disrespectfully to me, That means they think I am less than them. Therefore, I have to stand my ground and prove that I am not less than them. Well, that's a meaning that I have assigned
Right.
to a
100%.
situation. What if I change the meaning? What if I say they talk down to me, or it sounds like they talk down to me? And instead of that meaning they see me as lesser, maybe I assign the meaning that they are grossly mistaken, or they're upset, or it's more reflective of them and who they are than it is reflective of me and who I am. Changing the meaning of the story changes the way we feel about it, changes our stuckness. Because when we're wrapped right up in there in the anger and the frustration, it's really hard to see a different way forward. That's why your daily mindfulness, Kimberly, is so powerful because it allows us to get out of the toxicity, to just get centered, to be quiet, to channel positive energy. Positive energy and quietness creates creativity.
Oh,
I suppose there's some creatives who create while they're angry, but most of the creatives I know
no.
tap
Yeah.
into positive energy to create something.
And not only that, yes, positive energy and also the white space.
Yeah.
When that monkey chatter's flying around like howler monkeys in, Brazil, then not so much, right? And I also, and actually what you just said, Lisa, brought me to when I go in and do corporate workplace coaching, and restorative, bringing positivity back in. What you tapped into with the applying meaning, this is a lot of the work is around this because one of the biggest, I'm sure you've seen this as well, individually, not just with workplace stuff, but because that story you just shared has to do with us taking something personally. When 90+% of what anyone says to us, anyone, even with our name involved and whatever, it's about them, not us. So we're
That's right.
applying all this, and especially that's if it's in person, right? If it's a
Hmm.
text, it doesn't even have tone or a face, and we're
Yeah.
responding back and forth with partial truths, if any, and everybody's getting worked up with all the drama. For what?
That's right. That's right.
Right? I love that. Okay, so meaning, that's actually pretty huge. I was making some notes so I could hang on to that. And
Yeah.
then to really convey to people that really the only meaning anything has is the meaning we give it.
And so we have the power to change that at any
Yes.
time. But like you said earlier, Kimberly, like it becomes really noisy in our head.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other tools we talk about is an interpersonal communication tool. And we talk about the noise that is between you and I. We think that I'm sending a message, you're receiving the message, then you process that message, and then you send back a message.
Right.
But surrounding all of that is a ton of noise, both external noise, dog barking, drilling outside, but there's internal noise.
Right.
I'm hungry. We're getting close to dinner time. I'm a little distracted. I feel thirsty. I assign emotional meaning to those words that you used. And now I'm spun up internally around those words and the meaning I attach to it. And all of that is creating noise through which your message is trying to get through and through which your message gets filtered. So by the time it gets to me, it's not always, in fact, it's usually not the pure message that you thought you were sending.
Oh, that's fantastic. And especially as I'm a cognitive psychologist, you're singing to the choir right here, as I say, because there's so much. I think people. You're right, Lisa, 100% that people make a lot of assumptions that it's just I speak, you hear. That is not how it works. And then there's the memory, which is malleable, and
Yes.
and doesn't it's getting pieces of all this based on our own filters and schemas and everything else. And so there is a lot of noise. And I like how you're bringing that to attention, which I'm sure that's in the book, right?
It is.
About the
It is. It's
noise.
one of the tools in the book to help you identify what's the noise. And the impetus for that is usually you feel like you're not being listened to. You're not
Right.
listening to me. I'm frustrated. You need to listen to me. In reality, there's a whole lot of noise, probably for the other person, but there's noise here.
Right.
So in my family, my husband knows after 10 o'clock, we can have no deep conversations. Like, we can't make any deep decisions and we are not having any real arguments because I'm a morning person. So after 10 o'clock, like, there is so much noise. It's mostly called fatigue, right?
Yes,
I am
yes.
probably going to misinterpret what you say.
Yeah. Oh my God, I should do make a declaration myself because I'm definitely like I'm up. I hit the ground running at like 5:50. Like I'm that's my cognitive. I can answer emails in the evening, something that's pretty mindless. Although I try to shut that off too. But I'm in I Love Lucy mode at 10
Yeah.
o'clock at night, and my husband is like on at night. Same thing, bringing up the topics. Not now. you
Yep.
know,
There have been many a
100%.
time when my husband and I start to have kind of tense conversations or, communication's not going well. And I'll be like, hang on. What time is it? I'll be like, okay, we're just going to stop. We're just going to stop right here. We will try again tomorrow. Yeah, it's after
Try
10.
again tomorrow. Man,
Because there's so much
100%.
noise for me that
Yes.
I am not a good communicator and I'm not a good recipient
Uh,
because I'm tired.
because I'm tired.
Because I'm
I
tired.
love,
It
I
creates
love,
internal noise.
yes, and I love how you're saying this, Lisa, because I think it also, I'm feeling it, so I'm going to guess maybe some other listeners are too, because it's very validating. Because sometimes we can feel, or even be told we're not listening, or feel like we're a bad listener, and then label ourselves, not just that I'm not listening, but I'm a bad listener. That's a whole nother level, because that's like a character thing. When really, you might not have eaten, you might have eaten too much, you might be tired, you might be fatigued, which is another level from tired. And it's really not any of the things. It's that.
Yeah. And so the important thing there is to start to look internally and go, well, what's the noise in me? Because it's
Right.
not helpful when people say you're a bad listener. I don't know how to get better. Like, I don't know what to do with that. But when I can break it down and say, okay, what interferes with my focus and my full intentionality to be present with someone? Because when we're at our best, you don't have to teach people how to make eye contact and look empathetic and mirror body language. When we're at our best as communicators, we do that naturally. You look
Oh,
at little
absolutely.
children, they do it, right? They're captivated and you're just holding attention. When we're at our best, we know how to do it. The challenge is noticing when we're not at our best and how do I mitigate the things that are pulling me away from being a good listener. And when I'm a good listener and I'm fully present, I both give and receive better. And I am received more clearly. And I feel listened to.
Wow. And Lisa, this took me back to, or it's taking me straight to, well, also in regular everyday relationships. But when I do work with leaders in groups, the communication is without question usually at the top.
Yes.
You know, because it's like a clogged pipe in the plumbing, and once you loosen up whatever those, and it can flow through, but that's, at least in my experience, has been probably the number one. I mean, it looks different, obviously, with different, companies and with individuals, but that is it. And a lot of assumption making, a lot of taking things personally, which all lands under that umbrella.
Yes. The other thing that happens in communication that's also our third tool in our book is around unclear purpose. Like,
Oh,
what is your intention? What's your purpose for this conversation? And
right.
if I think your purpose is one thing, and you think it's a different thing, we're gonna start to move the conversation in different directions. So if, for example, I saw this happen in a team meeting recently, the whole team thought that the leader was looking for collaboration and a collaborative decision
Right.
and a consensus decision. And that's how the decision was going to be made. The leader actually just wanted input, but intended to make the decision himself. And so when he made a decision that was different than the seeming consensus that developed, you have massive disengagement from everybody in the room because they thought, wait a minute, we were doing consensus here and you just like went off on your own.
Right.
So understanding the expectations, the purpose of I want input, I would like your ideas. And what happened was that leader knew a whole bunch of other things that he didn't share with the people in the room. He made a really good decision. The challenge was the breakdown in the communication was around misunderstanding the purpose from the leader's perspective, why we're having this conversation, and from everybody else's perspective as to why we're having this conversation. So purpose can be really powerful. Not big life purpose. That's wonderful. And I love that too. But even what's the purpose of this conversation? What's the purpose of this task or this project?
I'll tell you, Lisa, I'm loving that as well because whether, like you say, I love that you're bridging personal and corporate or relationship or whatever, because what I'm taking from you right now is the purpose is in the small steps. You're talking about this big decision, but my purpose in this conversation at the dinner table with a partner, somebody I've been with for 30 years, or somebody I'm on my third date and I really like him, or what is my intention? Because that's what you're talking. It comes down to intention. And if that's not clear, it's any which way but loose.
It is. And there's something very powerful that happens when you are walking into a situation where you feel uncomfortable and you feel like there's hostility or there has been hostility in the past. For example, family gatherings sometimes can be a little challenging, right? And we don't control other people. Sometimes we like to think we do, but really you don't. People know you don't control other people. No. And so if you're worried about this person saying something or me being upset or blah, 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 it feels very out of control. You kind of take a deep breath, cross your fingers, and hope that it all works out. But if you change your focus and say, I'm going to choose a purpose for this gathering that is independent of what anybody else does, then I can have a great experience regardless of what happens. So for example, at a family gathering, there was some tension between me and one other person and that was going to be there. And I was really kind of dreading going. And I loved most of the people. I loved the people who were there. I loved even the person who was causing the contention in my life. But I was so nervous and I didn't want to get wrapped up in the story of, tense, right? I didn't want that story. So I chose a different purpose, and that was to individually connect with and just have moments of deep listening with at least 50% of the people there. I can control that. I can influence that. And that was my purpose. And so I was just looking for those moments of connection with nieces and nephews and grandmas and aunts and uncles and all of that. And as a result, I completely lost track of where that other person was at the party. They weren't on my radar. So I wasn't carrying the stress. I didn't bring stress to, and contention to any interactions. It was a fantastic family event because I had chosen a purpose that was wholly within my ability to affect. I can be present. I can listen. I can connect with people.
And on my own, schedule. This is what I find so empowering, Lisa, from this conversation. And it's also good for 365 days a year plus leap year, especially though as we're rolling into the holidays. And this will air probably in about a few weeks from now. I'll be right in the dead center, which is fantastic because I think you're helping people not only to feel validated, which is huge, to feel seen and heard, but also giving them a way out. If I'm in an uncomfortable situation, we can't always, with family, there may be people there who are annoying, but they're there once a year and, suck it up, buttercup, right? To go in with, I can choose not to be miserable. I can choose not to be agitated by make my own silent choice to have a different intention and get something entirely different out of this evening.
Exactly.
Taking control. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love
and
this.
It ends up being positive and purposeful, and it changes the way we show up.
Yes.
And so it changes what we get. And if
Yes.
you add a mindfulness practice onto that before you walk into that stressful situation, when you walk in with a purpose and you've become mindful and centered and quiet, oh, it changes everything. It's amazing.
It changes everything in it. And again, Lisa, I love that you're helping people realize that we can grab hold of the control of our lives. I like to use the idea because I'm a brain person. I love talking about all things neurons. I could just and like a thoroughbred horse, those magnificent, majestic animals just flying around, so gorgeous, and the jockey on top of the horse is like 95 pounds. You think of how well that's us when the brain feels like it's running around the track without us. Like you're giving hope and also empowerment. How people can grab the reins of their mind, which means the evening, the conversation, and also the person who's annoying them or just maybe just overwhelming them or whatever doesn't even need to know. It's all here. You just took the high road. You know it. You have the authentic swag on the way in and on the way out, and no one needs to know.
That's right. That's right. And if you get pulled off purpose and you
Right, right,
start to
right.
get sucked into that story and start to get sucked into the stuckness of it, you can get yourself out. Remember, this is my purpose. Remember, that's just a story. I'm putting that story to the side. And sometimes that happens multiple times in that situation. And you don't need to condemn yourself. You don't need to, oh, I failed. No. You can change your mind like that. You can change your mind just like that.
Like this. And I'm a
Get
big
back on
fan of
track.
progress. I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm a big fan of progress, not perfection. People can laugh.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of adult timeouts. So if you're at a holiday party, which because we're thrown together in the holidays, I think that's a one big reason, not all of it, but why it can be stressful. Because the rest of the days of the year we're mostly choosing, but we get thrown together in different things. So as far as adult timeouts, no matter where you are, if all else fails, duck into the bathroom. Hopefully, no one. So if you start to you've changed your story, you've changed your purpose, right? You've focused in, you're intentional, you're doing really well, and somebody sticks like a mental pin in you,
Yeah.
and it throws you a little bit. Okay, excuse me for a moment. Head to the bathroom, breathe,
Yeah.
and get back on. Right?
My husband and I look, well, everyone's going to know when they listen to your podcast. But my husband and I will look at each other and we're like, you want to go for a walk? Yeah. The answer is always yes. If somebody asks if they want to go for a walk, the answer is always yes. It just means I need to get out for a minute.
Scotty. Yeah.
And in the holidays where I live, it's cold outside. So that's also nice. It just kind of takes the external temperature and internal temperature down a little bit to go outside and take a walk, step into the bathroom. Some people go and just play with the dog for a bit. Go play with the baby, go play with the children. Change what you're doing so you can change how you think, so you can change your state,
No, I love
and
that.
then re-engage.
Yes, I'm big on changing the state, and
Yeah.
this is fantastic. Let me see. Lastly, here, what did we say? Okay, about the beliefs. Did you want to address that or no?
Well,
Like the
sure. I
limiting
think
beliefs that keep you from, or did we want to go towards motivation?
no. I love it all. I love it all, Kimberly, like you, because I love people, and I've been there. Like I've been so stuck. I was stuck in a job, just feeling crushed between upper management and my team I was trying to protect. And it got so bad, I gave myself heart palpitations
Oh
with the
no.
stress of trying to push off the upper leadership and hang on to my people. Every night I would come home and just spew all of the toxicity all over my sweet husband. I felt like how do I get out of this? Like, how do I change this? This is
Right.
before I became a coach. This is before I got coached, before I learned these tools. But I've felt this stuckness, and one part of you is looking at the situation, looking at your own stuckness, going, you're stuck. Like you need to stop. Like you really need to knock it off. You need to stop like spewing all the negativity over your spouse, over your family, or taking it out on people who don't deserve it. And the other part of you is going, I don't know how to get out. I don't know how to stop this. I feel like I'm in a whirlwind and I don't know how to step out of it. And so practices, Kimberly, like yours of mindfulness allow people to step off, step out. The Stuck No More book, it's a self-coaching book. And we talk about the power of coaches. Coaches stand on the sidelines, so they're outside of the fray. When you're in the fray, when you're on the field, you can't, it's very difficult to look up. First of all, you don't have the perspective, but it's difficult to step out of the action and go, let me take a big picture of this. And look at this. If you do, you're likely to get pummeled, right? You have to step off the field. That's what self-coaching does. That's what mindfulness does. It goes, wait. Let me get out of the fray. Let me step to the side and let me look with different eyes and see if I can get a different perspective, which allows me to see new solutions. For me, for that job, it required fully stepping off of that entire playing field. And so I left that position. But 95% of the time, it doesn't have to be that dramatic.
Right.
We can step off. We can ask ourselves some really insightful questions. Get a coach if you don't have a coach. But if you don't have a coach, then pick up Stuck No More. Look at the questions. Coach yourself. Open up and see new opportunities, new perspectives. Mindfulness is huge, right? That's what we do when we get mindful. We get reconnected. We get smarter. And then we step onto the field again in a different place and in a different way. And we get better results.
Totally. And Lisa, because what I'm hearing from you too is with the mindfulness thing, it's really all about the clarity it brings, the calm and the breathe and all these other things. But really in our day-to-day lives, much of our own self-imposed chaos and all the external, monkey stuff that's going on is because we're clouded over. So the clarity is really the biggest deal because it's difficult to go forward in any aspect of our lives. It's like walking through a cumulonimbus. Like, how can you? You can't. It only once we pave the way. And I think also, so we've been throwing around the word mindfulness a lot too, just so other people, I know you and I are on the same page, but often people get it confused with, my kids used to say, sitting crisscross applesauce, like in a Tibetan, cave like a monk. And I'm a big fan of monks, but this is really, it's all about being present and actively engaged in your life in this moment right now. That's all we're talking about. Doing the dishes mindfully, having a conversation mindfully, whatever mindfully, but it just means being actively engaged in your life as if your life depended on it, which it does.
Yes. Well said, Kimberly. Well said.
Well, thank
And
you.
you and I know, and we'll share with your listeners that the secret to coaching and the reason that corporate coaching or leadership coaching or life coaching works so well is because as coaches, we hold a quiet space and we ask the questions that allow people to find their own answers because the answers are in there. We help them see through the cloudedness, like you said. And so we do that by asking really good questions and getting really curious about answers and meaning of words. We help people go into themselves so they can find the answers they need and come out differently.
Yes. I love this too, Lisa. At least the effective ones, because at least for me, I know when I go into, and also speaking and all the other things that we both do, when I'm actually coaching, I go in there definitely with a servant mind. It's a humble, to be like a vehicle for other people's, if you want to call it healing or working things out or inner peace, workplace peace. We really are channeling it. They're doing the work. We're just helping them, like a pilot guiding them through the clouds, kind of thing. But I mean that sincerely. We really walk in as we're like a listening machine, and then we kind of help move the moving pieces. Well, this sounds like a wonderfully organic way to maybe wind up. So I often like to ask Lisa with the various guests and who have all different things, because we have quite a few listeners and in a lot of different countries too. Actually, last I checked, it was I think 52 countries. So people might be in all different places. So let's just say somebody is new, because there might be people who are leaders listening. Hopefully, leaders are listening and maybe they're like leader with a big L, a leader with a smaller L or a middle L. There may be people who do other things in different places. What would be your advice or tip if somebody's sort of just starting the awareness of this journey, of awareness of the negative dialogue and the things and being stuck? How would you advise somebody to get started?
There are so many resources and places to look. There's a lot that it can even create noise that can be hard. I would say get a coach like Kimberly, like myself, who can start to help you learn how to be very introspective. If you don't have access to a coach, Stuck No More, I mean, that's why we wrote it, so that you can start to coach yourself and use the very best questions that we use as coaches to help people get unstuck 80% of the time. I think the key to making that effective is you have to be honest with yourself. You have to really be willing to look in the dark places, the protective places, the hurt places, and say, what's really there? And the ugly places, like, why don't I really do that thing? Or why do I do that pattern? Is it out of fear? Is it out of anger? What am I protecting? And to just be honest with yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to explore who you are and how you are. Because the very best leaders I've ever met are highly self-aware.
Oh, definitely.
And that makes them very good at managing themselves. It also makes them intuitively very good at understanding other people.
Oh, what a great wisdom bomb there. Words of wisdom, because, and a great way to wind up, because I think that is just so incredibly true. When we're self-aware, then we have the tool to kind of move it around. Excellent, Lisa. Wow. So, Lisa Gregory, so she is going to have her information right below here. So we'll just say it out loud: stucknomorebook.com, right? I would say to grab a copy today. Also, Lisa, once again, does coaching for leaders as well as personal development and also online training. So you'll be able to find all that info right below here in below the video. And please reach out if you want to continue the conversation with Lisa about any of these things, have her come into your business or do some coaching with you one-on-one. And that's it. I'd like to sort of show gratitude to Lisa for spending your life minutes in this way, because there is no bigger compliment to engage with our listeners. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I love the work that you do, Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me.